Hello viewers, I'm back and in this live stream I will talk about the long form videos that I have uploaded in the last week. I have uploaded 8 videos starting from video number 177 till video number 124. 177 talked about tennis. In 178 I talked about how to prepare for the last 5 editions of MRCS ENT OSCE. In 179 I talked about how to practice English speaking for occupational English test, and I practiced with Dr. Preetha Ghosh. It's a very popular video, so you should check it out. It might prove to be helpful. In video 180 I talked about the world of movies. I talked specifically about Deadpool and Wolverine and compared it with Killers of the Flower Moon by Martin Scorsese. I watched both these movies on the same day, back to back, and I tried to compare Marvel movies with Scorsese movies. That also you might find very interesting. Presidential elections in 2024, I talked about the different states, tendencies of different states. Some states are Democrat leaning, some states are Republican leaning, and some states are believed to be swing states or battleground states. So I talked about that in video number 181. In video number 182, I shared my thoughts about MBBS students and how my opinion about MBBS students has changed over the years. In video number 183, I talked about the origins of the phrase justice should not only be done but must also be seen to be done. And in video number 184, I talked about American presidential elections once again, where I talked about the path to victory for the Republican candidate and for the Democratic candidate. Now let's talk about them one by one. Let's begin the live stream by talking about video number 177, where I talked about tennis. Now in this video I talked about the open era of tennis. The open era of tennis refers to the period after 1968 when major tournaments or the Grand Slams were made open to professional tennis players as well. Before the open era, these major tennis events, so the prestigious tennis events like Wimbledon, were only open to amateurs. Basically those who were not earning their living through playing tennis. But although it was called amateurs, but this was also pejoratively known as shamateurism, because there was a lot of other factors also happening. It was not just amateur players playing, but other factors were also being involved. So with the advent of open era, professionals could compete in the same events as amateurs, and people could actually make a living from playing tennis. And this of course increased competition, it increased the level of play, it made tennis more worthwhile also for the competing athletes as well as for everyone in the sport of tennis. So in this video I also talked about all the winners of the most prestigious event in tennis, that is the men's singles title in Wimbledon, and I talked about everyone who has won this title 1968 onwards. So let me try to recall that once again. 1968 and 1969 was won by Rod Laver. 1970 and 1971 was won by John Newcombe. 1972 was won by Stan Smith. 1973 by Jan Codes. 1974 by Jimmy Connors. 1975 by Arthur Ashe, the first person of color to win the men's singles title in Wimbledon. 1976 to 1980, 5 consecutive men's singles titles in Wimbledon was won by Bjorn Borg. 1981 was won by John McEnroe. 1982 once again by Jimmy Connors. 1983 and 1984 John McEnroe won the title. 1985 and 1986 Boris Becker won. 1987 was Pat Cash. 1988 was Stefan Edberg. 1989 Boris Becker once again. 1990 Stefan Edberg once again. 1991 was Michael Stick. 1992 was Andre Agassi. 1993, 1994, 1995, 3 consecutive times it was Pete Sampras. 1996 it was Richard Krajicek. 1997, 1998, 1999 and 2004 consecutive times it was Pete Sampras. 2001 it was Goran Ivanisevic, arguably the most enjoyable Wimbledon tournament I have ever watched. 2002 the winner was Leighton Hewitt. 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007 5 consecutive Wimbledon titles were won by Roger Federer. 2008, arguably the best match in the history of Wimbledon, was won, and the title also was won by Rafael Nadal. 2009, Roger Federer once again won in Wimbledon. 2010, Rafael Nadal once again won in Wimbledon. 2011 was the first title of Novak Djokovic. 2012, Roger Federer once again. 2013, Andy Murray. 2014, 2015, Novak Djokovic. 2016, Andy Murray once again. 2017, Roger Federer once again. 2018, 2019, 2020 was a gap year because of COVID. 2021 and 2022, 4 consecutive titles won by Novak Djokovic. 2023 and 2024 title was won by Carlos Alcaraz. So after talking about tennis, the next video, that was 170, last 5 editions of MRCS ENT OSCE. Now, MRCS ENT or MRCS forms the bedrock of this channel. This channel was created to talk about how to prepare for MRCS, how I had prepared for MRCS. Although I don't aim to tell you how to prepare, I feel that if I share my preparation journey, then it might be of benefit to those who are on the same journey. So only 5 more editions of MRCS ENT OSCE remain. Subsequent to that, MRCS ENT OSCE will cease to exist. So only 5 more times this exam will be organized. It will be organized in October 2024, thrice in 2025, once in February, once in May, and once in October, and one more time in February of 2026. So MRCS ENT OSCE largely assesses your knowledge of entire syllabus of otorhinolaryngology or ENT, ear, nose, throat, but only at the level of a first year postgraduate trainee or somebody who has just started specialist training. So one needs to read a lot of otology, that is ear, a lot of head and neck, rhinology, pediatric otolaryngology, radiology, anatomy, including histology, instruments, written communication, that is how to write a discharge letter, how to write intraoperative notes, how to write a transfer letter, how to identify various medicines assessed in 2 different exams. One is the non-manned exam, where you have to answer theory questions on your laptop, and the other is the manned exam, where you have to encounter simulated clinical scenarios where you have to communicate with patients or perform clinical examinations or both within a stipulated period of time, and your actions will be closely observed by the examiner. I have made detailed videos talking about how to prepare for each of these situations, and you'll find links to those videos in the description below as well as on my channel. So there are dedicated playlists for each of these situations. Moving on, in video number 179, I talked about how to prepare for English speaking in occupational English test. Now, English speaking, I believe, is one of the easier parts of occupational English test, and occupational English test in turn is one of the easiest English language proficiency tests. If you want to work as a doctor in the United Kingdom, you need to be registered with the General Medical Council. And if you want to be registered with the General Medical Council, you need to prove that you are proficient in English language. Because if you are not comfortable in English, then you are jeopardizing the safety of both your colleagues as well as your patients. So in order to prove that you are well versed in the English language, you have to appear in either IELTS or occupational English test and get the minimum score that is acceptable to the General Medical Council. In the case of occupational English test, the advantage is it is dedicated to healthcare professionals and it is easier to pass compared to IELTS. In occupational English test, you only need a grade of B in each of the 4 subtests, that is B for ball in listening, in reading, in writing, and in speaking. Now, the speaking subtest consists of 2 role play exercises where you'll be handed a card. You can look at that card throughout the task, so you don't have to memorize the tasks. You have to look at that card and you have to communicate with an interlocutor. If you are taking OET on computer, this communication will happen via Zoom, whereas if you're taking OET on paper, then this communication happens face to face. So this communication is very uh, very easy, to be honest, but you have to be completely relaxed, because the only thing you want to avoid is you want to avoid speaking too fast, or you want to avoid unnecessary pauses as well. You don't want to convey the sense that you are searching for words or you're searching for structure. So you have to talk at a steady pace without getting too nervous, without hurrying too much, and without pausing unnecessarily as well. So I did practice that with Dr. Preetha Ghosh by taking 2 sample tests from the official website of Occupational English Test. This was video 179. In video 180, I talked about cinema. More specifically, what is cinema? Is Martin Scorsese's definition of cinema accurate, or is the modern day equivalent, that is Marvel Cinematic Universe or superhero movies, is that cinema? So, when something becomes really successful, you stop paying attention. You stop paying attention to the fact that all you are getting in movies, or every movie that you are going to see in a theater, is largely the same fare, that is the superhero movies. So when superhero movies started appearing stale, started losing their appeal, then I started questioning whether Martin Scorsese was correct in describing Marvel movies as not cinema. Martin Scorsese, to his credit, did write an op-ed article in the New York Times explaining why he had said so. He said that maybe during his formative years, these movies were not the most popular movies. He grew up watching Hitchcock, Godard and other movies like that. So he wasn't drawn to the Marvel movies. But he also has exposed a very clear reality that if certain kinds of movies prove to be successful at the box office, exhibitors will only want to exhibit those movies. So the space for other movies like Killers of the Flower Moon by Martin Scorsese, these movies do not get the same purchase, or do lose their negotiating power with exhibitors. So I watched Deadpool and Wolverine, that is the latest Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, and I also watched Killers of the Flower Moon, the latest Martin Scorsese movie, on the same day, back to back. And while Deadpool and Wolverine had many flaws, it still managed to deliver just enough to keep the audience, like me, satisfied. Although, of course, it is no Avengers Infinity War, or it is no Avengers Endgame, it still does enough to keep the audience satisfied. Although it does lean too obviously into the nostalgia factor, which I should make a different video about. As far as Killers of the Flower Moon is concerned, it's a fantastic movie. It is subtle, the political messaging is not too loud, but I feel it also has its flaws. And in terms of a Martin Scorsese movie, the flaws become more pronounced, because Martin Scorsese movies, for good reason or bad, are subject to being a victim of the director's own success. Because Martin Scorsese has made so many amazing movies, every movie that he makes is held to a higher standard, certainly higher than Marvel movies. So, of course, in the Killers of the Flower Moon, I found the one thing really annoying, that is, a line was not drawn from the events when the events of the movie happened till present day. And if a line could have been drawn, maybe with one scene of just text on the screen, I would have been very, very happy. Now, the next long form video that I uploaded on this channel talked about my opinions about the American presidential election in 2024. Now, I have followed American presidential elections since 2004, and after the advent of YouTube and cheap internet, my YouTube homepage is full of videos that talk about American politics, more specifically American presidential elections. So I'm kind of a armchair expert on this topic, although I have no stake in the American elections, and but I do believe that whoever wins the American election is going to play a very important role, because America happens to be the most powerful country in the world. I do believe that the Republican candidate has an edge, because states that vote for Republicans tend to continue voting for Republicans, and they are more difficult to flip, so to speak. Although even in 2022, reliably Republican states like Arizona and Georgia did vote Democrat, I don't see that happening in 2024. So I talked about the different election results in 2004, 2008, 2012, 2016 and 2020, how states like North Carolina, Ohio and Florida have gone from voting for Democrats in the Obama years to being reliably Republican in the Trump years, or how states like Nevada, Colorado and New Mexico have turned the other way from Republican to Democrat. And I also highlighted that only 3 states can be reliably called battleground states, or largely these 3 states will determine what happens in the presidential elections in November, on November 5th, if I'm not wrong. And these 3 battleground states are Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Mark my words, if Republicans can win even one out of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, I believe Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States of America. Now, video number 182 talked about my thoughts about MBBS students and how my opinion has changed over the years. Before I became an MBBS student myself, I used to think that MBBS students are superheroes. When I was an MBBS student, I felt there was too much division, too much rancor, too much lack of unity, or too little unity among MBBS students. And I also felt there was a sense of we are different from other students. As in, MBBS students are different from engineering students, MBBS students are different from art students. This mindset was harmful. That is what I felt when I was an MBBS student. I had lots of friends from the humanities. I used to hang out with them. I used to watch movies with them. I had friends from pure science subjects, and I used to enjoy their company a lot. But I felt that most MBBS students only wanted to stay within the silos of MBBS students, and they were largely unaware of the world that lay outside the gates of the medical college. So I felt MBBS students were insulated as well as divided within their insulation. So I did not have a very positive opinion about MBBS students when I was an MBBS student myself. Once I ceased to be an MBBS student, I missed the camaraderie that we had. And when I became a postgraduate student, I had nothing but envy for MBBS students, because I felt MBBS students had a lot more opportunities available to them. The possibilities in their future were limitless, whereas I, as a postgraduate student, had largely picked my fate. Once I ceased being a postgraduate student, I lost touch with MBBS students, and they largely underwent a phenomenon known as out of sight, out of mind. But when I started teaching MBBS students again, I was reintroduced to how awesome MBBS students are, and I have nothing but respect and, to be really honest, awe of MBBS students, because now the MBBS students don't seem to be disconnected from the world at large. They seem to be much more intelligent than I ever was when I was an MBBS student. In video number 183, I talked about an aphorism that I have heard quite often: justice must not only be done but must also be seen to be done. And I wanted to research the origins of the phrase. As I found out, the origins are often attributed to Lord Chief Justice Hewart, who in the 1924 case of Rex v. Sussex Justices opined this, because in that case the Sussex Justices were believed to be biased, or there was at least an appearance of bias, because they had heard a case involving their own clerk. So I really do believe the justice system is the one impartial system that still exists in all civilized society, and it should be upheld to the highest degree of it. It is something which we all rely on, and relying on the justice system is basically the difference between chaos and order. So I talked about the origins of the phrase, and I really liked the phrase, so I wanted to share this with my viewers on YouTube. In video number 184, I talked about the path to victory for the Republican candidate and the path to victory for the Democratic candidate. The path to victory for the Democratic candidate is quite simple. They need to retain all the states that have voted for the Democrats in 2020. If they do that, and still if they lose Arizona and Georgia, they stand to win the elections. Basically, there are 21 states, including District of Columbia, who reliably vote for the Democrats. Now, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan have also reliably voted for Democrats, but they have also voted for Donald Trump in 2016. So if the Democrats win in each of the three states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and they also manage to retain the 21 states that I consider Democratic leaning, then the Democratic candidate will become President of the United States in the elections in November 2024. However, if the Republicans need to win, they need to win at least one out of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. If they win at least one out of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, and they manage to win in Arizona, Georgia, and retain all the 27 states that I consider to be Republican leaning, then the Republican candidate will be the next president of the United States of America. So there you have it. I have talked about in the last 1 week or so, and thank you for joining me on this live stream. Take care. Bye bye.